Hi, I'm Chris Lee, and this is Virtually Speaking. Joining me today is Steve Farber, who redefines what it means to be a leader of substance, significance, and success. The Huffington Post has named Steve as the #1 business speaker to see, and he's listed as one of Inc. magazine's global top 50 leadership and management experts. He's a multiple best-selling author, including his first smash hit, The Radical Leap, hailed as one of the 100 best business books of all time, and Greater Than Yourself, a USA Today and Wall Street Journal bestseller. His latest 2020 title is Love is Just Damn Good Business. These best-selling, award-winning, critically acclaimed books on leadership put the principles of extreme leadership into easily understood terms and show us how to take the leap in business using love, energy, audacity, and proof. Please join me now with Steve Farber. Well, hello, Steve Farber. Thank you for joining me today on Virtually Speaking. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Chris. It's great to see you again, albeit virtually.
Yes, indeed. The new wave. It's all the rage. Virtually speaking.
Virtually speaking.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. But you know what? At first, I think most of us looked at this Zoom, et cetera, as a necessary evil.
Mm-hmm.
And man, some really interesting things are coming out of it in terms of people ironically connecting more by being physically distant and seeing each other on Zoom and actually being able to look into each other's eyes. It's kind of
I think it may even be setting the standards and some trends for the future right now in business, because like you said, so many people really are connecting, maybe more now than ever. And I have a group of friends from high school that we've stayed very close. We have this like group me chat room, and we decided that, and because we all live all over the country, most of us, and we decided we're going to do a poker game via Zoom, and then using like a poker app. And actually, it's Blue Jeans, not Zoom. Sorry, Zoom. Blue Jeans on the phone or on the screen, and then you have your poker table. You're virtually playing, and we literally hang out with each other now way more than we ever did.
Yeah. Well, we bring our kids together, between my wife and me, we have six, three and three, right? And they're all older. I mean,
Brady Bunch.
Yeah. Well, they were never all under the same roof.
Oh, okay.
It's funny you say that, because when you get them all on Zoom, it's like the beginning of the Brady Bunch.
Yeah. Hey.
But we bring all of our kids together and their significant others much more than we used to.
It's amazing. And I've said this on other episodes of this, that it almost feels like you really hung out. I mean, it does feel like you really hung out with that person. So it's really cool. And I know you've done a lot of virtually speaking for conferences and events, and you've done some really cool interactive workshops with people. I know that you have one of your acronyms, or your main acronym is LEAP, which is love, energy, audacity, and proof. You got to lead with those things. You got to take the leap. And you had kind of a workshop where you kind of had each of those words of the acronym explored by the groups, and it went really well, right?
Yeah, I've been doing quite a bit of that stuff. Actually, the series that you just mentioned, I finished this morning. It was the fourth in a series of 4, and each session, each 90-minute session, was built around one of the elements of LEAP. So cultivating love, generating energy, inspiring audacity, providing proof. And what makes these sessions, again, I think it's kind of ironically effective, is how well people can connect with each other when they're not sitting in the same room breathing the same oxygen. So if there's a balance between, presentation, provocative thought, good ideas, and then some breakouts where people can talk to each other, can interact in the chat, you put all that together, 90 minutes goes by. It goes by like that. And the uptake, the behavior change that comes out as a result of that is pretty significant, especially when they know they're coming back in 2 weeks or in a week, and they've had I give them homework, right? Field work, I like to call it. It sounds much better.
Yeah, that's much better.
So we just talked about this. Now go try this, and let's, when we get back together in 2 weeks, we'll compare notes. It's really wonderful. So, I look at this whole Zoom thing. I mean, we all know that it's been around for a long time, Zoom and Skype, et cetera. But what's happened here, I'm wondering if you've seen this, Chris. To me, it's like this has been the greatest most successful, fastest technology rollout in human history.
Yeah.
I mean, you know how it is in companies, because as you know, I've worked with a lot of companies, and I've seen all the challenges that come along with when you're rolling out, for example, a new CRM or a new whatever.
Yeah.
You have to enlist people, you have to educate people, you have to convince them.
You have to have plans and charts and
plans and all that. This was like, let's give them a virus, and then everybody will use it starting tomorrow. And that's exactly what. So that's the. I know it's. I'm reluctant to say there's an upside to this whole thing.
Well, you have to have that attitude, you know. And I've been working with a lot of people who don't have that attitude, and I'm like, it's all in your head, because if you really want to be taken down by this thing, you know, you can be, or if you want to find your solutions and your goals and your optimism and the things that you know can work or are working or that you've got to try. You talk about trying things that make you scared. I know you've talked about that. Right. That would be extreme leadership, right?
Yes, exactly.
Which is kind of one of the monikers of your major best-selling book, your first book, The Radical Leap, one of the 100 best business books of all time, according to I forget.
Yeah, this was the. It was, that book was written by, I was going to say according to me, but that book was written by the guys who used to run 800 CEO Read.
Oh.
Todd Satterston and Jack Covert. So they're in the business book business, and they pulled that list together based on what they'd seen in terms of book sales and content and all that. So I was really honored when they named The Radical Leap as one of those books, because it was right there next to legends like, you know, Peter Drucker, and some of my own mentors who are also legends like Tom Peters and Jim Kouzes and Barry Posner. Mm-hmm. And then to see my little book in there was like, it was really gratifying.
Well, you've sold almost, I think, 250,000 copies of that thing. So I know.
Yeah, it's been around.
I know you've done well with it. And then you have 3 other great books: The Radical Edge, and then Greater Than Yourself, which I know is a Wall Street Journal bestseller.
Right.
And then, of course, this year you had a book come out. I think the perfect title for this year, and you must have just been so not happy, but I mean, it's really appropriate for the times we're living in right now. But Love is Just Damn Good Business. That's really got to be everybody's mantra, really. And so that was also called one of the best business strategy books of 2020 by the Book Authority. But anyway, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. Hey, don't apologize for that. So here's the thing about Love is Just Damn Good Business. The reason I titled that book, Love is Just Damn Good Business, is because love is just damn good business. Mm-hmm. And this has been the core of my work for a very long time. So it started with The Radical Leap, which came out in its original edition in 2004. So it's been out there for a while. And as you mentioned, LEAP stands for Love, Energy, Audacity, and Proof. So I've been teaching, I've been consulting around operationalizing love as a business principle for quite some time. And I know, you know, for most people, we're not accustomed to using the word love and business in the same sentence. It makes some people squirm. And a lot of that's because of I'm going to say, a bit of a misinterpretation as to what that means.
Well, people are afraid to fall in love with somebody at work because they'll get in trouble, and you know, you're not allowed to flirt, you're not allowed to do anything at work. So I think that's probably maybe what the fear is. And, and yet when you lead with love, and there's been a couple other authors who've talked about this.
Sure.
You know, it's absolutely, but it is rare, and it's a very risky word to use in business, in a meeting, or as your book title, certainly. So yeah, it's very interesting. I see you have your love heart in the background there. So you really are all about love, but you're such a sweet guy. It makes sense.
Well, you know, I'm also a business guy, and this is the thing. You know, there is a stereotype around the word, and I think it's really tragic. And here's why. Now, what I'm about to say, I cannot prove. But my theory is this: most people already believe that love is just damn good business. The problem is that most people don't believe that most people already believe
Right.
that love is just damn good business. So there's a stigma, and we just kind of back off from
Well,
it.
what do you mean by, why don't you explain for everybody what the meaning of the book is and what you mean by love is just damn good business? Obviously, you got to love your customers. You got to love yourself. You got to love your employees and your team members.
Yeah, and that all, when you say it like that, if I listen to it with cynical ears, it sounds like, and I can say this because I'm in California, it sounds like California touchy-feely hoo-ha crap. And love is not, in this context, love is not a sentiment. It's a discipline, and it's a practice. So the question that we got to answer as business people, as human beings in general, but as business people, what should love look like in the way that we do business? So here's the way to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Our competitive advantage comes from a product, a service, an experience that our customers or clients, whatever terminology you use, are going to love. If they don't love what we're doing for them, then there's no brand loyalty, there's no word of mouth, there's no guarantee they're going to stick around. They'll go somewhere else that's okay if they can get a better price, right? So we should all know this by now. This should be conventional wisdom by now. The problem is that that's usually where we leave it. We understand. We want our customers to love us. We want to get a 10 on the Net Promoter Score. We want all that. But we have to break it down and ask the question, how do we get there? It's not about printing banners and buttons that say we love our customers. So if you back that off one more step, the only way to really make that happen for customers in a meaningful and sustainable way over time is to create an environment or a culture, as we like to say,
right,
that people love working in. If I don't love working here, it's very difficult for me to create that experience for customers. And if we back it up one more step, as a leader, I can't create that kind of environment or contribute to that kind of environment unless I got it myself first. If I don't love this business, if I don't love the employees, if I don't love what we're trying to do, if I don't love our mission, it makes it very difficult for me to create that ripple effect, as it were.
But what does the love look like when you are using it as a tool or as a personality trait with the people you work with or with the people who are your customers? So what are some of the examples of how that looks?
Yeah, and that is the ultimate question in this, is we have to answer it behaviorally. What should or does love look like in the way that we do business? So let me acknowledge, first of all, that love is a ginormous word,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And it means a lot of different things to different people, and we use it in all kinds of contexts. So for example, it's fair to say I love pizza. I also love my wife. I love them very differently, right? One I shouldn't love and what I should love. but we still use the same word, and we do this all the time. So it's about getting more conscious and intentional about it. Again, it's not just throwing the word around. So the question then becomes, let me start with how we could pose the question. I'll give you some specific examples of what that might look like. So if you bring your team together as a leader and you ask the question, what can we do to improve our customer service? You're going to get some good answers, all right? The classic kind of brainstorming sessions. We should all know by now that the people on the front line have the best ideas, blah, blah, blah. So we bring them together. How can we improve our service, guys? They'll come up with some ideas. But if you ask the question differently, if you ask the question, how can we create an experience that our customers are going to love? Or related question, how can we better show our customers that we love them? You get a very different answer. Mm-hmm. So what this does, the stereotype says, if I start using the word love, then everything's going to get soft and squishy, and everybody's going to be, it's about making people happy. We don't want to piss anybody off. We want everybody to like us. It's all that soft stuff. But nothing could be further from the truth. That question raises the bar. It raises the standards. if we're trying to get people to love what we do for them, it's not enough just to do the same old stuff, right? And then if you apply it internally, how can we create, better, what we like to say as business people, how can we create better employee engagement? Great question. How can we create an experience that our employees are going to love working in? Entirely different answer, right? Because we're raising the bar. And this is the thing that I really want people to understand. This is not about lowering standards. It's about raising them to a level where we have to really stretch and grow and take risks in order to meet that. So can I give you an example?
Yeah, I was just going to say, that's great that you just said that, of course.
So I'll share with you one of my favorite case studies from a little company in Jacksonville, Florida. It's called Trailer Bridge. So by the way, not as an overt commercial for the book, but just so you know, Love is Just Damn Good Business is case after case after case, example after example after example. Got it.
Great.
So there's lots of things to do and try and all that. And this is one of the stories featured in the book, and it's an ongoing story, by the way. I'll give you the update after I tell it to you. So Trailer Bridge is a shipping and logistics company. So not a particularly sexy business. They ship goods via barge, primarily from Jacksonville, Florida to Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, and other places. So they literally ship. And I'm not speaking out of school when I tell you that the history of this company, they've been around now for 30 years. The history of this company was, let's just say, not good. I mean, they sucked. They
weren't good at shipping?
They were terrible on every measure, including customer service, including employee surveys, and most important when it comes to a business, ultimately,
customers.
They went bankrupt.
Oh.
So financially, it came down financially. So they went into bankruptcy. And it just reminded me in the moment, my mentor, Tom Peters, one of my favorite quotes from Tom is, he said it beautifully. He said, if your company's having trouble attracting fabulous people, it's because your company sucks. And so that was the case with Trailer Bridge. They were spending a ton of money on recruiters because they had to, entice people to come work there.
Right.
So they went bankrupt. They burned through 4 CEOs in 2 years. They burned through 4 heads of HR in the same period of time. And the place was toxic. So finally, the board came to a guy named Mitch Luciano, who was on the management team already, and they tapped him on the shoulder. They said, okay, Mitch, it's
all yours, buddy.
Your turn. You're the next CEO. How do you like that? And here's what he did. So first of all, what you need to know about Mitch is that he's a love guy. So Mitch had been, he had been a student of my first 3 books, The Radical Leap, The Radical Edge, and Greater Than Yourself, which is all about operationalizing love in various ways, right? So he said to his board, I'll do it, but there are a couple of conditions. First of all, he said, I don't want the title of CEO. I'll take the title of president. I'll earn the title of CEO. When the employees tell me that I've earned it, I'll take that title. And then he said, and you have to let me do this my way, because I'm a love guy. I mean, he didn't say that. But that's
the other ways also didn't work. So
the other ways didn't work.
This is really all they had left.
He understood. So here's what he understood. It's just what that formula, that little process that I just laid out for you a couple of minutes ago. If we want to make money, we have to have clients that love what we do for them. We have to create a culture that people love working in. So I have to take steps to make that happen. So he looked around the company, and this was a small company. At the time, I think there were 120, 130 people. And he noticed a couple of things. He said, okay, if I'm going to create an environment that people love working in, I need for them to really begin to get to know each other. And the first thing he did was really maybe a little bit more symbolic than anything else. They had a process, a policy that everybody should wear a name tag all the time. So 130 people walking around with name tags. And he said, we're 130 people. We should know each other's names. So he banished the name tags.
Interesting.
So it's symbolic, right?
Nice, yeah.
So we need to know each other, rip off the name tag, I'll do the same, which meant that he had to learn everybody's name in the place. And then he looked at the physical environment and he said, okay, this is Cubicle City, floor to ceiling cubicles, people sitting next to each other, working together for 10 years, never see each other.
Mm-hmm.
So he lowered the heights of the cubicles so people can actually, look into each other's eyes. He told his managers to get the hell out of their offices and just walk around and get to know people. Again, an old concept.
Right.
But the idea is we need to learn who each other is so people will love working here, look forward to coming to work with their friends. Then he did, the Silicon Valley kind of stuff where he looked at the break room and he brought in a foosball table, ping pong table, popcorn machine, the whole thing. Every Thursday he brings in, still to this day, brings in a food truck.
Nice.
And feeds the whole company. Everybody has lunch together, and things started to change. The dynamics started to change. They did hundreds of things like this. They looked at their HR policies. They looked at how they hire people, the kind of people that they hire. And the question was always this: does this create an experience that people will love? And they also looked at the customer side of things, of course. So they had a long-standing policy that they would not ship a barge until it was at least 75% full. So if it's scheduled to go on Tuesday and it's only 60% full, it doesn't go until they sell at least another, bit of space to get it up to 75. Now, why is that? You look at the balance sheet and it says
fuel costs.
We're going to lose money.
Right.
So we're not in the business of losing money. So isn't it obvious then that you don't sell until you can sell it? Now, why couldn't they sell it? Because their service sucked, their people were cranky, the whole thing. So they looked at it and they asked the question, this goes back to the question that I posed just a couple of minutes ago. They asked the question this way: if we really loved our customers, under that same circumstance, what would we do?
We'd ship it now.
Ship it. We ship no matter what, because that's what we told them we would do. And that's what they started doing. And at first it was a little bit of a gulp factor, because they lost money on that shipment. But it was example after example, very similar to that. Now, here's what happened. I'll go right to the punchline. 2018, they were voted number 1 and number 2 best place to work in the city of Jacksonville. There were 2 years in a row, the last 2 years of this company. Last year they had their best year ever. The 2 years before that, their revenues in those 2 years exceeded the previous 25 years of the company combined.
What? That's crazy.
They're winning all kinds of customer service awards. Guess how much money they spend on recruiting now? 0.
It's all word of mouth.
It's all word of mouth. Now their employees are their best recruiters because they love working there. They want to see their friends there. So what they've done is they've redirected some of the money they used to spend on recruiters in teaching people how to interview.
Right.
Interview skills and the kind of people that we're looking for. So now they're
That's great.
So I've had the chance to go out there and spend time with them. I've gotten to know them really well. It's just story after story. We did a case study on them. But then I was really happy to hear just about a month ago. So first of all, the first time they were voted number 1 best place to work in the city of Jacksonville. The following year, it was number 2, which really pissed off their employees because they felt that they should be number 1. So this year, 2020, once again, they were voted number 1 best place to work in the city of Jacksonville.
That's
They're
good.
expanding all over the country. And if you ask Mitch, first of all, how did you do it? He will tell you, I didn't. We did. But the next thing he'll tell you is we created a culture of love. Now, is that soft, fluffy stuff? Absolutely not. Most profitable years in the history of the company. You know why? Because, drum roll please, love is just damn good business.
That's right. There you have it. Oh, that's great, man. That's great. And the whole book is chock full of stories and examples like that, which is great. But it just brings up to me a question now that I have for you about this word of love. Can you take somebody who doesn't love what they do and turn them around on it? I know that you owned a company.
Yeah.
You didn't love what you did.
That's right.
That was kind of the beginning of your kind of business, life and business career. and then you decided, you know, you were going to get more into the leadership and the, you know, kind of world that you're in now of thought leader. But you started, I think you put some workshops together. You really liked people. So I guess you found out you didn't like running a company, you didn't like the business you were in, but you liked people. So you wanted to help people with
Yeah, sort of. So this is a long time ago.
Yes, yes. You look very young, my friend.
As a young man, I discovered very early on that I was an entrepreneur. I started out wanting to be a musician, thus the guitar, and I've been a musician my whole life. But I got married young, I had a family young, and I came to discover that being a musician and feeding people were mutually exclusive ideas. So I got into business because I had a friend who had a business, and he was in the commodities futures business. So I went to work there because I needed the money, not because I was turned on by this whole concept.
Right.
I discovered I was an entrepreneur because within a few years, I had my own small brokerage firm. It's not that I didn't love running a business. It's that I didn't love that business, that industry, because it's very speculative. People lose their money all the time. And I had a moral dilemma with that. So I loved business. I loved the people. I loved the game of it. But that's as far as it went in that business because it very quickly became all about the money because I just didn't feel like I was giving any value. So I hated it, really. And it's a weird place to be when you hate your own company. Now, could I have stayed there and made money over time and prospered? Yeah, maybe. I just don't know how long I would have lived in the process to get
Well, it makes sense that entrepreneurs have to love their business. They have to love their job. They have to love what they're doing. But I'm also thinking about the employees and the managers and the people who don't own the companies, who aren't entrepreneurs. Is there ever a shift with them? And I guess maybe this example of the shipping company is where some people didn't like their job. The CEO made some changes. The president made some changes. And then they learned they actually liked it a lot more, and maybe they loved it.
Sure.
So I guess there is a way to get people to move from not liking to loving their job.
There is. So here's what I've found with this. It's a great question, by the way.
Thank you.
Not that the other ones weren't great questions. There's a lot of nuance to the answer here. So
yeah.
Bear with me for a second.
Sure.
So first of all, let's just acknowledge it is entirely possible to make a lot of money, have a very, for all intents and purposes, successful career and not love it. It's entirely possible. I see it every day. I know lots of people who are absolutely miserable making the money that they make. But if we look at it from a leadership perspective, to what degree can you effectively create an environment that brings the best out of everybody, that high engagement, high productivity, high innovation, high results environment? Can you really do that without loving some aspect of it? I'm not so sure you can. So it's an ideal state to be. That doesn't mean that everybody's there. So then to your question, can you take somebody who doesn't love this and have them go through some sort of a epiphany or revelation? Yeah, but there has to be a willingness to get there because it's gonna require some self-reflection. So I actually wrote a blog post about this quite a while ago, and the question was, what do you do if you don't love your job? And the simple place to start is to ask yourself, what is it about this work that I do love? So what is it that I'm grateful for? Who is it that I'm grateful for? Was there a time maybe when I first started here? I hear this a lot. Oh, I was all starry-eyed and I loved this place, 10 years ago, and then I just kind of got beaten out of me over time. Is there some spark that used to be there that you could bring back? And sometimes it's just a matter of reflecting on it. I was giving a speech once to an association of paint manufacturers. So these are, hardcore blue-collar manufacturing environment, and we're having a conversation about love, which is not the the stereotypical environment you have with a bunch of old dudes. Basically.
Well, hopefully they had some reds and pinks available.
Right, some pastels.
Yeah.
So this guy came up to me afterwards, who was the president of his company, and he said, and we were having this conversation about losing that spark sometimes, And he said, I just wanted to say thank you. And I said, well, you're welcome. What are you thanking me for? And he said, I forgot. I realized I forgot. When I first started with this company, I loved it. I was passionate about it. And then over the years, I just kind of lost the steam. And when you asked that question today, it just reminded me, and it turned all my lights on again. And that's why I'm saying thank you. Mm-hmm. So for some people, it's really just a matter of posing the question. Is there something about this work that you do love? Is there something that you did love that you can bring back? And at the same time, I want to acknowledge this doesn't mean that we need to love everything about our work. And I'll speak for myself. I love my work. I love it. This is my work. This is the kind of thing that I love to do. I don't love everything about this business. I don't really love marketing. I don't love expense reports. I don't love airports. I don't love hotels night after night. But there are things that I have to do that I don't love.
To get to the things you do love.
In order to do the work that I do love. And the technical term for that is called being an adult. So if you don't have that spark, there has to be a desire to get that spark. You know, if you just are dismissing this out of hand and saying, it's a bunch of crap. Okay, fine. That's not who I'm talking to. I'm talking to somebody else. But here's the thing. Again, like I said earlier, most people already have that desire. They just have been conditioned to believe that they shouldn't in the context of business. So sometimes it's just a matter of me, or you mentioned, Tim Sanders, Love is the Killer app, Jim Kouzis and Barry Posner. One of their practices is encouraging the heart. I didn't make this stuff up, right? Sometimes it just takes somebody like us to come along and just pose the question or just give the permission is what it feels like. You know that impulse that you have, that instinct that you have, that's the right instinct.
Right.
Act on that and see what happens.
Yeah.
So I think there's, in as I've, spent the last several decades working with just about every kind of industry and just about every kind of company and having this conversation with people and seeing so many people light up, and then seeing people like Mitch, and then it goes on and on and on and on, right. Example after example, there wasn't any kind of really deep, transformation that took place other than it was like, oh, I should be doing that.
Right.
And then just getting after the work of making it real and operationalizing it in the way that we work.
Well, I think that also in this pandemic, that it's really easy for people to succumb to the fear and the negativity and the news and the despair and the worst case scenarios and all of that. And I think love is really why I thought your book was so great to come out this year, is because, if you don't love yourself, and if you don't love your business, and if you don't find the love that you have for your customers and for what you're doing, it's almost like you have to look at the world you're living in right now and focus on like caring for people. So when you're on the phone with people and you understand that everybody has a different way of dealing with this pandemic, everybody has a different way with dealing with being furloughed or being fired or being, making a quarter of the money they were making the year before, whatever their situation is, starting with that love and that empathy when you're having those conversations with your customers or your peers, really being a human, and then loving yourself, knowing that you're going to be okay and that this isn't your fault and that you can make your way through this and you can find solutions. It really is, if you really look at that word of love as being kind of a goal word for you, it can really get you through a lot of this. And if you really care about who you're dealing with and you care about your business, you're going to find new ways to do your business, and you're going to find people who want to connect with you, who want to do business with you, because they appreciate the empathy, they appreciate the concern, they know you care about them, and you're trying to find solutions for them through business. So I think that this pandemic is actually maybe the perfect time to really refocus ourselves on a lot of things we can do better, a lot of things we put off, a lot of better ways of doing business, but also really learning to do some of the things we've wanted to do, like better management, better marketing, better sales. And you can actually start that now during the pandemic.
Absolutely.
And your book is really a great guideline for that.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things there. First of all, you mentioned other words that I think are, if not exactly synonymous with love, they certainly live in the same neighborhood, like kindness and empathy, etc. One of the formulas that I laid out in the book is that, for people that are really struggling with the word love, you don't have to use the word love. It's not about using the vocabulary word. Deeply care about is acceptable. And the behavior, what does it look like? At business, the formula is, one of the formulas, kindness plus high standards is what love at work looks like. So I can have very high standards, and if you don't meet those standards, if I have to fire you, I can do that with kindness. I can do everything with kindness. And there are times where we have, there is such a thing as tough love, right? There are times where we have to do that. But to your point about the pandemic, Chris, here's what I'm hearing a lot. It's the phrase, now more than ever.
Right.
I'm hearing the phrase now more than ever, now more than ever. The way that I hear it used is like what you said. Now more than ever, we need love. Now more than ever, we need connection. Now more than ever, we need kindness. Now more than ever, we need empathy. We need connection. We need relationship. We need to support each other. Now more than ever, we have to think outside the box. Now more than ever, we have to be innovative. Now I listen to that and I get it. I get it. But my response to that is, that's always been true.
Right.
It's not suddenly true now where it wasn't before. It's just that the circumstances now are making us more aware of it.
And you can practice it now and get good at it now, and you're going to be better in business for it, and hopefully it becomes a habit moving forward.
Forever moving forward in any circumstance.
Yeah.
And that, that gives me, I have to say, that gives me great hope.
Yeah.
Now, I'm a natural optimist.
Me too.
I will admit that I get frustrated. I get antsy. I'm finding myself really beginning to miss hanging out with folks. Being in a group with my clients, face to face.
Right.
Hanging out with my friends, playing music. I'm feeling that, and if I am, I know most people are. Depending on where you live in the world, you're experiencing varying degrees of isolation, right? But we have, again, an opportunity to build that connection regardless of our circumstances. And it's really very simple. It's a simple thing. It takes time, but it's a simple thing to carve out of our schedule. I'm going to do a Zoom call, personal Zoom calls with everybody on my team, one-on-one, just to check in and say, how are you? How are you doing? And let me figure out how I can help make things better and help you feel like you're part of the team. I think we need to go out of our way to do that. And the other thing that we need to do is remind people that this is not, I don't like the phrase the new normal.
No.
Because we tend to interpret the word normal, we define it as eternal, right? This is the new forever.
We don't want it to change, right?
This is not the new forever. This is a temporary circumstance. The problem is we don't know how long it's going to last, but it will pass. It will pass. And the one way that we can show our love to our teams is by reminding them of that, but then also engaging people in a conversation about the future. What do we want our team to look like when this is all over? How do we want to emerge from this?
Well, isn't that the perfect example? Isn't that the perfect time for extreme leadership?
Yes.
Isn't this the perfect time for taking a radical leap?
It is. Extreme times call for extreme leadership.
Right.
And when I use the phrase extreme leadership, all I'm really saying is that real leadership by its nature is extreme. Leadership's not about your position or your title. It's very easy to call ourselves leaders. So it is extreme because it's about the act of transformation in some way or another. It's about creating a new reality. It's about It's about taking nothing and turning it into something. It's about stretching and growing our skills and capabilities, and those are the people around us. That's extreme. So extreme leadership is really just my way of saying real leadership, but it's also about a conscious intent to change things for the better. And that's the practice that I refer to as audacity. Yeah. It's a bold and blatant disregard for normal constraints in order to change the world for the better. However we define world, we could define it with a small w world, as in the world of my team, or a capital W world, as in the very fabric of human existence, right? Mm-hmm. That's entirely up to you. But that's extreme. And if we're not making use of our talent and enlisting the talent around us to change things for the better, and we're calling ourselves leaders and we're not doing any of that, I don't really think we have the right to call ourselves leaders. We're more in the poser category than we are in the leader category.
Well, you also talk about leaders being not, by title leaders, people who are just employees or just the everyday working man who decides to be a leader and do the best he can. Talk a little bit about that, because I think there's a lot of people out there who may not have good leaders or have good leadership.
Yeah.
But they can change their world themselves by just doing things a little differently.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really easy to listen to a discussion like this and say, it's my boss that really needs to be listening.
Right.
Right. Or to read the book and then drop it on somebody's desk and say, you can really use this. So, yes, let's just be clear. Leadership has nothing to do with your position or title. Again, with a couple of caveats. But first, just to clarify that point, I've met plenty of people over the years in my work, as I'm sure you have, Chris, and everybody listening to this has, that sit very prominently at the top of their company's org chart, have very lofty and impressive sounding titles, yet still have, and I'll be polite, a bit of work to do as far as their leadership goes, right? And the flip side of that coin is even more important, which is what you were just saying. I can't tell you how many people I've met that have no positional authority whatsoever.
Right.
They're nobody's boss, they're nobody's manager, they're nobody's supervisor. They're right there, they're on the front line, they're doing the work, and they're great leaders by virtue of who they are, what they do, how they approach their work, how they live, and their ability to influence people around them to change things for the better. This is the person that I call the extreme leader. Doesn't matter what your title is. Having said that, this is the caveat. If you do have a title, if you do have a position, what I'm saying is the practice of leadership does not automatically come with the territory, but the expectation of leadership does. The expectation for everybody else down the line that you will lead is automatically there from day one.
Right.
So what that means for all of us is that this is a constant, ongoing learning, trial and error process. There are some people that are just natural born leaders, no question about it. But for most of us, we have to work at it. And it doesn't mean that for the rest of us, there is no hope.
Right.
We can all get better at this, just like anything else. We just got to focus on it and practice it. And we're going to screw it up. And we're going to learn from those mistakes. We're going to get feedback from people. We're going to try it again. That's the only way to do it.
Absolutely. As with everything. And that's why it's great that there's so many great books out there and great authors out there like you, who, if you find those authors in those books, they can really be very useful and very helpful. If you pay attention to them, if you want to listen, if you want to learn, if you care about self-improvement, if you care about growth, if you want to be educated. I know most of the leaders I know actually read way more than the people who aren't leaders.
Yeah.
It's like they know they have to be reminded, they have to be educated, they have to hear other points of view. But a lot of it's just being reminded.
Yeah, there's that old saying, readers are leaders.
Yeah.
Which I get the sentiment of, but I think it's actually the opposite. I think it's leaders are readers. In other words, just because you read books doesn't automatically make you a leader. But if you want to be a better leader, you have to be a part of the conversation.
Right.
You have to, whenever we get to the point where we think we got it all figured out, we're screwed. Again, I'll quote Tom Peters one more time. That old saying, you should never rest on your laurels. And he once said, well, the reason is that today's laurels are tomorrow's compost. and that means we have to keep growing. And as leaders or aspiring leaders, again, regardless of position or title, there's a lot that we can learn from each other. There's a lot that you can learn from your team. I mean, when I go in and work with clients, sure, I'm there because I'm a subject matter expert in this, because I've just had exposure to so many leaders and
Right.
so many great ideas, and have helped people put it into practice and put it into practice myself. That doesn't mean I have it all figured out. I'm not the guy with all the answers. So the great joy is in learning from my clients, and the great joy that every leader has is learning from his or her team and from their colleagues. And again, it comes back to, do I have a love for this practice of leadership? Do I have a love for the future that we can create together? Do I have a love for the values that we say we stand for? Do I have a love for the mission of this company? And if I do, then I want to do everything that I can to make sure that we're as successful as we could possibly be. And that means keeping myself open to being a student as well as a teacher, and it becomes two sides of the same coin.
And if you really are focused on love and all the things we've been talking about today, doesn't that kind of just defeat fear, which is really the main thing holding most people back?
Really interesting question. It depends on the kind of fear, right? So love is what emboldens us to step up in the face of fear. But there is another flavor of fear that I think is very natural. So in other words, if the love gets me to step up, to take a risk, to change something. Listen, by definition, if I'm trying to change my piece of the world for the better, I'm taking a risk, because we're trying to do something or create something that does not currently exist, right? So there's no guarantee in anything.
Right.
Taking that risk is scary. That's the part that we tend to forget about. Love is the impetus that moves us forward. Fear, the right kind of fear, is actually what the experience feels like. Mm-hmm. So this is what I refer to as, I call it the pursuit of the OSM, which is spelled capital O, capital S, exclamation mark, capital M. And that stands for the oh shit moment. Right? That's the feeling that we have when we're taking a risk in order to accomplish something great. So the love gets me to step up. The experience of it is the OSM. Now, if I'm conditioned to believe that I should be fearless, then as soon as I have an inkling of that OSM, I think something is wrong. Mm-hmm. And therefore I stop, or I turn and I run, or I don't act on that, that great idea that I had. So what I'm suggesting is that in the right context, that fear is actually a good thing, because it's an indicator that we're doing something. And it's perhaps an indicator that we're moving in the right direction. Right. Use the old pop psychology. We have to reframe the experience so that when we have the fear, I'm trying something new because I believe that this is the right thing. There's no guarantee. I step into it. I have that difficult conversation. I try that new process. I launch that new product. I make that sales presentation, and I'm feeling that OSM. I can then in that moment say, oh, there it is. That's a good thing. That means I should continue
to strive for that. Yeah.
To quote Monty Python, not run away, run away. It means move towards. So love and fear, but that's a positive kind of fear.
Yeah.
There's the fear, all the fear of rejection and the fear of, those other things that are damaging to us. And therefore we tend to lump all fear into the same category and treat it all as bad. And it's not all bad.
Yeah. And certainly, like I said, the best way to defeat fear is with love, is to
right.
And gratitude and really empathy and caring. If you really focus more on those things, you're gonna be okay. And you really are a man who teaches us how to do that.
Well, thank you. And for example, the classic scenario that's often quoted when talking about fear is the fear of public speaking, right?
Yeah.
So
that's supposedly the number one thing people are afraid of.
Yeah, right. I've never actually seen the source material on that, so I wonder if it's literally true. But we certainly hear that a lot. So here's the other thing we have to remember, is that the OSM, that fear, is a relative thing. One person's OSM is another person's walk in the park.
Sure.
Speaking in front of people is not my OSM, but was it ever once upon a time? Yeah, certainly to some degree. So the love for something drives us to work through that fear. So if you're one of these people with, the classic fear of public speaking, but you really love the idea of being able to do it, it's that love that will impel you to experience that OSM, to get up there and do it time after time after time. And before you know it, it's not an OSM anymore.
There you go. Yeah.
Where this really came home to me, I was speaking at a conference of orthopedic surgeons, and the guy who was heading up the conference that year. This is why I'm chuckling about this, because I'll never forget this pep talk he gave me right before I went up to speak. He said, "Just so you know, you're about to speak to 300 of the biggest egos you've ever known, and if they don't like you, if they don't like what you're saying, like within the first couple of minutes, many of them will actually get up and leave." So,
so go get them, pal.
So it turned out they were great and had a twisted sense of humor, just like I do. But when we got to the conversation about the OSM, and I'm explaining about fear and it's relative and all that, it suddenly occurred to me that I'm talking about the OSM to people who cut people open for a living.
Yeah.
To me is the most terrifying thing that I could ever imagine. And to them, they're whistling and singing a tune and talking about their golf game and sports and all that while they're cutting into people. Mm-hmm. And yet, for a lot of those guys, according to what that pep talk I just got, the idea of doing what I was doing in that moment, speaking to 300 massive egos, is the most terrifying thing they can imagine.
Right.
So why do you do that? Why do you learn how to cut into people as a doctor if you don't love the challenge, the possibility of being able to save lives, all the ideals around being a surgeon, right? That's what gets you through those first, the first time you ever did that. I can't even imagine what that's like.
Right.
I'm not an OSM anymore.
Exactly. Man, this is awesome stuff, Steve. I'm definitely going to have to go back and listen to all of this again, because it's all usable content that we can all really benefit from. So these books are awesome. You're awesome. You're always one of those speakers who everybody knows is great, one of the top leadership speakers out there. And thank you so much. It's an honor to have you on the show. I really appreciate it. And we could talk for hours, I'm sure, but there's so much content here. I just want to rewind it and watch it again. So, man, thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Chris. It's been a real pleasure to hang out with you, and thanks for asking such great questions. It's not an easy thing to do. It's not an easy thing to do, but this was really a lot of fun. I hope it's helpful for people.
I know it will be. Thank you so much. Again, you are the man. We'll talk to you soon, and have a great rest of your day, buddy.
Thanks.
Take care.